All right, now that that's done with, we can resume talking about the game that I'm going to try to design. This is episode 2 of me, Adam Bell, trying to design a new tabletop RPG, ideally in time for Zine Quest 2021. Yesterday I rattled through a bunch of old ideas that I haven't yet designed and I'm trying to land on one. So today what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that strongest idea that I have so far, the post-Anthropocene game about trying to live on an Earth that's being terraformed by huge robots. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a look at that and see where we can get. The first thing I'll do is I'll look at the notes that I kind of have on that, the more detailed notes that I didn't bring up yesterday, and just talk about where it's at, and then I'm going to go through some systems that I know, some game systems that I know, to try to maybe come up with a starting point, see if this could be a hack of a game or, something like that. So, without further ado, here's what I have so far. How it started. First, the ruling class on Earth plunders and consumes for so long that the planet plunges into a climate catastrophe. Instead of fixing anything when they have time, capitalists wait until they personally feel the effects before acknowledging their hoard of all the tools to fix the issue. Thus started the most foolish plans. Instead of stopping the extraction and overconsumption of resources, construction began on the planetary mirror. The idea is simple. Lodge a monstrously large mirror in orbit around the planet. Once a month, it'll reflect away all light from the sun for 24 hours, thereby cooling the planet. Global temperature averages drop slowly over the course of decades, complacency sets in, maintenance of the mirror falls by the wayside. The planetary mirror blocks out the sun more and more. It's clear that it's going to be tidally locked by the end of the century. So that's what I've written down, and then the next steps are going to be basically construction on a lot of the different nations of the world begin construction on interstellar ships, just to bail out. I mean, this is not a coordinated effort. I need to make sure. One of the challenges, I think, with the backdrop of the game is making sure that we're not kind of describing the global bourgeoisie as some unified force that can just do things, because that's not the way it works. So, a bunch of different plans but they all boil down to leaving. So a lot of these ships kind of get built and take off, probably destroying the big mirror in the sky in the process, but taking with them all of humanity's accumulated knowledge and probably most of the scientists and doctors and medical knowledge and medical supplies, and basically, doing the last bit of stripping the planet dry, leaving behind, more importantly, leaving behind the huge terraforming robots and stuff, because somebody had the idea to, hey, maybe we can spruce Earth up, and if we don't find anything in this big voyage in the stars, we can come back to a fresh start. But of course, ignoring that plenty of people and creatures still live on Earth. But that's... See, this is a sad game. So I think the game would take place maybe like 100 years past when that happened. So there are societies that have built up and have scrounged some of that info together, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And then where to go from there is, to me, the tricky part. I've got this big world backdrop of lots of pain, but where do we go from there? So I think picking a mechanical base point can help really define where we do go from there. So I've got with me a stack of games that maybe could be a good start. I'll go through these one by one and go over what I think the choice of each of these games, like the statement that makes. So let's see. Where do I start? I mean, I could start here. I could start with Spire. So the resistance system that this runs on. There's a lot in this book that you could talk about that I'm not going to get into, that arguably it's not my lane to get into, and maybe not the author's lane to get in. The core system of this game, the resistance system, is about basically the fallout that comes from failing dice rolls. It's a kind of flat D10 system, and you sometimes will get extra dice, but more often than not, you're not going to get a full success in this game, and your harm is tracked in a very, very interesting way across many different things. You accumulate this stress, and then once that stress builds up, you receive fallout from the GM, and that's a bunch of different things. I've played Heart, but I haven't played Spire. Heart is the second game in the series. Yeah, so you roll the dice, you accumulate stress. So I think this is going to be, if I were to go with the resistance system, that is a tale of, well, honestly, of hardship and of probably characters that aren't going to last very long. There's games like Troika, like maybe this could be an OSR type game. I included this just for posterity. I don't know that an OSR game is the right fit here, because those are usually, again, just like characters dying, kind of going on adventures that are hard, and it's not my wheelhouse, I guess. Blades in the Dark is a cool game, right? Forges of the Dark games are all over the place. There's a particular one that is not in physical form yet called Songs for the Dusk that definitely is in a similar vibe. That's kind of a hopeful... So Blades in the Dark, as it is a hard game about stress and crime and trauma. But there is another one called Songs for the Dusk that is about hope and rebuilding and all of that. So I don't know. I don't know that Forge in the Dark is the right fit here either, just because I'd be treading similar water to Songs for the Dusk, and I would like everything that game has done so far. So yeah, I just don't think that's it. It's not that you can't do a similar idea as somebody else, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. It's not my... I included Dungeons and Dragons as a bit. That's not what's happening here. No Stone Unturned. I am considering making a hack of that. The one big benefit is that it's a system I'm very familiar with. The other big benefit is I think it might fit, which makes sense because it's a similar thing. No Stone Unturned being a long past apocalypse type of game, this just being long past humans have left, which has a similar vibe for the humans that are remaining. As I said in the last video, I think this is going to be a GM full game, not a GM less game, whereas No Stone Unturned is a GM less game. But it's a game with solid dice mechanics that I think you could slot a GM in just easily. Just as easily as any of these other games, anyway. In the same way as you could remove the GM from a lot of these games and not notice. So I think this is on the short list. It's been on the short list the whole time. I've kind of had it in mind. But to break down what the core of this system is to me is it's a game of, one, managing the stress of adventure, and two, managing the dichotomy of trying to advance your own goals while paying attention as a player to how that interferes with the rest of the world. And I don't think the world bit is key to No Stone Unturned. I don't know that I have to make another game about environmental impact of exploration. I think core to the system is a dichotomy of some sort. I've had some ideas on different ways you could do that, like perhaps you could make a game where each die roll... So for the quick background, each die roll in this game, the arbiters choose, so whoever's acting as GM at that time, chooses whether the action being taken by the character is more likely to endanger the character or to damage something about the world, be it another character, an ecosystem, whatever. So I've been trying to think of how else that could be utilized, and one thing that I thought that I don't know that I love is, are you acting selfishly or selflessly? That's one choice, but basically coming up with something that splits like two different ways of acting would be key to using this. So again, short list. We'll keep going there. Another choice could be if I want to make another GM-less game. Maybe the GM isn't right. Is basing it on Dream Askew and Dream Apart. So make it no dice, no masters game. This is a mechanical framework that I think is very cool. I have not had a chance to play one yet, but like maybe. So I think that's in the medium list. Other ones to throw out would be Powered by the Apocalypse games like The Sprawl and a Tunnel Goons hack like Yokai Hunters Society. I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with those games. I think at least Powered by the Apocalypse has been fairly thoroughly explored as a design, but I don't think it's not finished by any means. I mean, it's a good framework, but I don't know that I have the brain for it, honestly. So probably not those two, which then the last one I brought over is my other game, only because I do want to make a GM version of the dice mechanics in this, but that's for something else. I was hoping by talking about each of these I'd find one that I really enjoy. I'm looking over at my game shelf, seeing if I missed anything. There are a couple other ones that I could see being a cool base. One being The Wizards in the Waste by Bats. This is a game. There's like a cool core loop in this game. You roll a d20 and you're trying to be under a number, and if you fail, you basically create a new save that you can use later. So let's say I'm trying to start a campfire, and I'm not good at that. I can do it. You just roll a die. If you don't have anything that applies, you just use your standard save. If you go under that, you succeed, but if you go over that, you fail, and create a new one related to the thing. So in failure, you're learning. So I would create like campfire as a new save. It would be a cool way to do a game about learning. Based on a similar thing is Vinicio Valetti's 6E GM-less, which honestly, if you haven't read this, go do it, because it's a very interesting exploration of game design. I've never played it, but just reading it tickles the brain. But the main thing on this is it's by default a GM-less game, and everybody is playing a canvas. So like, if you don't feel like playing a character that day, maybe you come in and act as a canvas of shit. Canvases can range from a major character, groups of minor characters, a place, enemies, the genre that you're trying to invoke, the narrative arc of the quest that you're on, the gods who watch, you name it. If it's a part of World of Story, it can be a canvas. You can control several canvases at once if you want. So it's about really breaking up the components of a story. Like the standard dynamic of a tabletop role-playing game is you've got the one person who's in charge of everything, and then the group of other people who are in charge of individual characters that are reacting to that everything. Which is cool. That obviously has legs, or this fucking entire hobby wouldn't exist. But this is like, well, what if instead of doing that, you just break it up into everything, and whatever you want to play as, you can play as. If you want to play, you're not feeling up for it today, maybe you just want to play the wind, and so you pick up the wind as a canvas. And as everybody else is playing, you're like, ooh, the wind is rustling like pretty fierce. Terrible example. Cool idea. Just honestly, this should go into a lot of games. I don't know. I'm left with my own shit, which makes sense, because it's what I've been thinking about. this feels like it's been long enough. I want to do more, but maybe that's tomorrow. I like the idea of breaking this into, as a creative process, into little chunks, because then I'm encouraged to do it and do it and do it instead of getting burned out by sitting down for a couple hours some night. Yeah. I went into this sitting down with the mind of like exploring in my head what all these different games are doing for me. Make sense? So yeah, thanks for tuning in. I think tomorrow what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna seriously start figuring it out and doing some actual game design instead of just talking shit. Cool. Can I help you?